Thanks so much, Joanne. Yeah, it really is true. My father said, my parents are Chinese immigrants, and they're not traditional. They're not, the Chinese tiger mother that much. And my father always said, you can do what, be whatever you want to be. We want you to be happy. Do what you enjoy. Just don't go into social work. So what do I do now? I run a social service agency, but I started out in psychology. So, but I really want to thank you for the kind introduction and. Just say that when I heard that I was receiving this award tonight, I thought, wow, that's really cool. But then, when I found out who the other recipients were, I thought, wow, now I'm really impressed. So I am just really honored to be able to share this time with Paula and Judy, and I'm just tickled pink. And so I'm very honored to be here tonight. The other thing I was thinking after I kind of got over that was, why was I chosen for this award? Because Center for Ethical Leadership, yes, I've heard of them. I heard Bill Gray speak when I was doing Advanced Bellevue, which is now Leadership East Side. I don't really consider myself to be a leader, and I don't feel like I'm particularly ethical or anything. But thinking about it some more, it really reminded me of a story that I heard from my grandfather. The Bien family, we have a long history, and actually was written in several volumes and stored in the Tianjin Library. It went back to about 1000 AD. And unfortunately, during the Cultural Revolution, it was destroyed by the Red Guards. But before my grandfather passed away, he thought he would try to write down as much as he could remember of our family history to share with his grandchildren and future generations. And he talked about in this, one of these several volumes of family history, that it talked about this ancestor from way back when, who was referenced in the Analects, which was written in about 300 BC. And this ancestor of mine was a general under the king of the Wei state during the Warring States period. And he found out one day that he had been accused of being a spy for one of the opposing factions. And so when he found out about this, he promptly went up and presented himself before the king, and he told the king that he most definitely was not a spy, but that also he could not continue to serve in the capacity given the questions about his loyalties. So then he promptly went and jumped in the Wei River and drowned himself. And took his eldest son with him, because this was the honorable thing to do. Fortunately for me, there was a second son who didn't jump in the river, but I think that from that must have impressed upon him so strongly this sense of morality and doing the right thing. And that's been passed on down through the generations in our family, I think. That you really need to do the right thing, even if it means sometimes drowning yourself in a river. I'm really glad that over the last 2,400 years or so that the moral standards have kind of changed, and so you don't have to kill yourself if you're accused of espionage. But still, I think that this value of ethics and morality and doing the right thing is something that I personally feel very strongly about and want to be able to pass on to my children and their children as well. And also through my actions provide an example to our staff at CISC, the Chinese Information and Service Center, to our many volunteers, and to all of our constituents. To me, it's so interesting listening to Dale and to Raj talking up here before, and I think as they were talking, it struck me that, a lot of what they're saying is kind of what I've been thinking about the last couple of days as Paul and I have been Facebooking each other and saying, what are you going to talk about? I don't know, what are you going to talk about? No pressure or anything, but to me, I think doing the right thing means not always just thinking about yourself and your family, but really thinking about what's good for your neighbor, what's good for your community, and what's good for our society, and not always taking the easy way out. Doing the hard thing, like going up to the chairman of the bank and being prepared to be fired and being okay with it. Working for that common good. I think that's really important, and I think that I do have some hope that this may be sinking in with my kids a little bit. Because a couple of years ago, when my daughter was finishing up 8th grade, she had to take a proficiency test as part of her Spanish. She's in Spanish immersion, and so she had to get tested in Spanish. As part of her oral exam, she had to choose a topic and talk about it. And so I asked her, well, what did you talk about? And she says, well, I talked about your job, Dad. Talked about my job? What do you know about the work I do other than I sit in meetings all day long and I go to a lot of dinners at night? I mean, really, I was kind of questioning, you know, what do you know? But she told me, and I still remember this. She told me that what she talked about was how CISC helps immigrants make the transition to a new life, and how we provide immigrant integration services, and how we work on community building by bridging cultures, communities, and generations. And I sat and I thought, wow, you know, she picked all that up, you know, over the years. She was actually kind of paying attention, and she was able to talk about it, and in Spanish, which was just amazing to me. So I just want to say, parents of kids, you know, pay attention. Your children are watching you, whether you know it or not, and they're learning from what you do, if not what you say. So I think it's really important for all of us to always make sure that we're doing the right things. We don't know who's watching. We don't know what effect it'll have on other people. I think that this idea of community building and working for the common good, it reminded me of another story, and I love to tell stories too. I guess it must run in EDs or something. It was about a man, and the board, you've heard this before, it was a man that I met at one of our senior program activity sites. It was, we have 3 offices in Seattle, Kirkland, and Redmond, and then we have other activities at 13 other sites throughout King County. And this was at the North Bellevue Community Center, one of the Chinese New Year celebrations, and I was talking to this man who was going on and on about how much he really appreciated the work that CISC does. He comes to the senior center every single day and takes part in activities. He rides his bike every day. He's 70, I think he was 78 at the time. Rain or shine, he would ride his bike to the senior center and participate in these activities. And Monday he would have his ESL class, and on Tuesdays he volunteered and taught folk dancing from his province of Anhui. And on Wednesday he did his Tai Chi with about the 75 other, it's a very popular activity in Bellevue with the seniors. And then Thursdays he would play pickleball, and on Fridays he had a Chinese book club. And he was telling me about this, and I'm thinking, well, pickleball, what is that? So I asked him about that, and in case you don't know, I still don't know exactly how you play, but it's evidently very popular amongst the senior set. And the thing is that he played pickleball with a group of other seniors, none of whom were Chinese. So these were mainstream American, Caucasian American people, and they got together every Thursday and had their pickleball game. And what I think was just really cool was that he doesn't even have 5 words of English. I mean, he probably knows hello, goodbye, thank you, something like that. But that was one of the best things about some of our programs, because they're integrated within the Bellevue Parks and Rec Department, Redmond, Issaquah, Kirkland. And so anybody can participate, and it gives our seniors a chance to interact with people they wouldn't normally get a chance to interact with, and for the mainstream seniors to get to know some of their new neighbors in a non-threatening, fun kind of way. And what this means is that now, when this gentleman, he goes to the supermarket, he's at QFC, and he sees one of his pickleball buddies, he'll say hi, and he'll have a connection there that he wouldn't normally have had. And he has a trusting relationship that makes him feel part of the community and makes the other folks feel the diversity and the richness of their new neighbors. I think that doing the right thing for me means really building community. It's a value that's embodied in everything that CISC does, from our early learning programs to our technology and workforce development, to our elder programs that promote health, independence, fellowship, and lifelong learning. So tonight, I don't want to accept the award on behalf of myself, but really would rather accept it on behalf of all the dedicated staff and the hardworking board members and volunteers at CISC, because to me, they're the ones who really are the ethical leaders in our community. So thank you very much.